would have been interesting to see how many votes may have changed because of Gordon's actions, because of the response of their communities after those bills were passed, specifically the gun-free zone bill. I think that we would have very much seen a change in votes on that one. I think you would have seen more nay votes on that than you had before.
So you're saying that some folks were counting on the governor veto in that one?
I very much 100% think that especially school districts, courthouses, places like that were banking that the governor was going to go, no way are we letting guns in these areas. And I think that their response afterwards may or may not have swayed some of those representatives and senators to vote a different way because the response was strong.
You guys are going to get sick of hearing from us. Lynn Kendall, Black Hills Energy. With me again is Ken Myros and our general manager, Michael Pogany. So they're going to correct anything I get wrong. Like we talked before, I'm here to just kind of walk through what a franchise is, Franchise 101, what we see as a company, and then dig in a little bit with the Newcastle franchise. And I have the presentation here, I'll walk through it, but feel free to stop me with questions, points of clarification, interrupt as you need to. Before we start, Black Hills Energy, safety is paramount, as you can imagine. So to emphasize the importance that we take in safety, we start every meeting with a safety briefing, and it's just ingrained in our culture. So I'm going to do that today. I know it's hard to imagine with the weather that we have, but we will be getting into wildfire season soon, and that's obviously a big deal for a utility company, but for those of us that love the Black Hills and living in the Black Hills, it's some important reminders. Don't have fires outside of unapproved fire pits. Dispose properly of matches, cigarettes, and then be cognizant of where you're four-wheeling ATVs, parking cars in dry grass. Again, it's kind of hard to imagine dry grass right now, but we will see it. So pay attention to those things and avoid inadvertently starting fire. So just to recap, Black Hills Energy, South Dakota Electric, that's the business unit that we work with. You here in Newcastle work with two business units through Black Hills Energy, the gas side and the electric side. I'm here on the electric side. We serve about 1,900 customers in Newcastle between businesses and residential. So we're a proud community partner. So a franchise. We have been operating under a franchise agreement to serve electrical energy to the city of Newcastle for 20 years. And we're here because the franchise is up for renewal in August. And we're hoping that we can continue with the partnership that we have had over the past couple of decades. So a franchise is essentially a non-exclusive agreement. And non-exclusive, I know, Tyrell, you had a question last time about the length and what if in 10 years there's an opportunity for nuclear or some other energy like that. Well, this non-exclusive language is important to that because you can have other agreements with other utilities, like you operate under a franchise agreement with the gas side of our business. This is only an agreement between the city and Black Hills Energy. That's all we're talking about. It provides the essence of a franchise. You know, we get into the length, we get into franchise fees, but the meat of what a franchise agreement is legal permission for Black Hills Energy to use the streets and the right-of-ways to provide infrastructure to the city. It dictates how we do business. And then sets forth the length, fees, and then unique things that may come up that the city requires. A franchise is the law. We kind of see it as a contract, but it is an ordinance and enacted like any municipal law with readings and an approval date. And then because it is law, it's limited by constitutional powers. Anything that any other law that you enact is limited by. So the benefits of a franchise to a city. Again, this dictates how we do business. What rights you give the utility to operate, and how you expect us to communicate, and the responsibilities and the authority given to us by you. For example, if we have to do construction or maintenance on any infrastructure and we tear up the street, the franchise says you have to file permits, you have to pay the permitting fee for any construction that you do. But we're also obligated to make sure that those streets are returned in the same order that we found them in. And so the franchise gives the city some comfortability that that's how we're gonna operate. It ensures that you have a long-term energy partner, that you're not having to go through switches all the time, which are painful and take a lot of time. Like I said, any inconvenience, any construction work that we have to do, that inconveniences travel, that we're communicating that and that it's minimized as much as possible. And then a franchise fee also ensures that your utility partner is aligned with the same vision of the city. So we're working hand in hand with you with growth and community support, and we want to make sure the city grows because that's how we grow. So you have a partner that is supportive, answering questions, and working side by side with you in development. And then also the franchise fees offer a little bit of revenue. So the benefits to Black Hills Energy, and this is a win-win we see, same type of thing. This is a long-term agreement that gives basically the business comfortability in investments. We talked a little bit last time about what a capital heavy industry this is, and we have to finance a lot of the work that we do. And we don't get to recover that cost, we pay for it all up ahead, and then recover it through rates on the back end. So we have to pay for that up front, and we have to finance that, and money costs money. And by having long-term franchises in place, that improves our credit rating and our ability to finance construction at a more cost-effective rate, which that cost effectiveness then is passed on to customers. So it's really a best business practice to enter long-term franchise agreements. So what a franchise is not. A franchise is not rates. That's all filed through the Public Service Commission, and they do their due diligence. That's all separate. It's not service territory, again, that's all decided at the PSC level. The franchise only allows our business to operate within the city limits. It doesn't dictate any authority other than the construction stuff that we talked about, nothing like eminent domain, that's all dictated at the state level. And then safety standards, those are all followed by federal practice. So yeah, essentially a franchise establishes the governing laws for occupying and operating in the public right of ways. So just talking a little bit through a model franchise. We operate Black Hills Energy over the 8 states in well over 800 small rural communities. And most of them, well over 500, have franchises. So this is not new. This isn't something that we deal with frequently locally, but as a company, this is pretty standard practice. South Dakota doesn't operate with franchise agreements, but Wyoming does. So we put together kind of model franchise best practices over the many years that we've been working with municipal governments. And this just kind of walks through some of the common things that you see. Again, that non-exclusive right to construct, maintain, and operate the system, which is just the bones of the franchise. Again, that non-exclusive right to construct, maintain, and operate the system, which is just the bones of the franchise. Right to be in the right-of-way. Common franchise dictates the terms of agreements, the governing regulations, and then things like tree trimming, which the franchise that we are in front of you today does include vegetation management. It's a big part of what we do to maintain the security and safety of our system. Some franchises include things like street lighting. There's also the franchise fee. And then standard language is that hold harmless language that you see in your franchise, the severability clauses, and then the effective date, the acceptance. So I outlined this just so you guys can see that it's pretty standard language that we're working with. Of course, happy to change things to fit what's needed for the city, but it's pretty common. Franchise fees, we had some discussions last time about what fees look like, so I added some information there. Predominantly, the franchise fees that we see are included in one franchise, but we do see every once in a while the fees split out. So during the meeting, you'll see I brought with us the 2 versions. The franchise version that does include the fees in it, and then also 2 ordinances, one with the franchise agreement and then the fees split out. Both offer pros and cons. The 2 ordinances, like we talked about before, allow a municipal government to adjust those fees without having to open up the whole franchise agreement. Including it with the franchise agreement does limit when you can adjust those percentages, but it does offer some billing stability for your constituents. Do all municipalities enact a franchise fee? No, some don't, but the average is a 2 to 3%. Franchise fees typically aren't restricted in any way. They usually go to the general fund of the governing body. And I put in here just so if we are clear, the franchise fee, a certain percentage of it is collected, billed to the customer. So what we're proposing is the 2% that we'll collect from customers, and then remit 3%. So we'll add a percentage from gross revenues and remit that to the city quarterly for 3%. Questions on that?
Yeah, that was one of the things I wasn't super clear on. So the customers are getting billed 2%
Yeah.
for the total cost of their bill.
Yeah.
And then you guys are adding a percentage point to that
Yeah.
and then giving that amount
Yeah, the 3% to the city.
Okay. And then that's laid out right here in the proposed ordinance.
It is, yeah.
No, I wasn't quite clear on how those fees were collected and how they were remitted.
Yeah, so 2% collected from the customer, for a total of 3% remitted to the city.
Okay.
And that's what's happening right now anyway, correct?
Right now, we are collecting 1% and remitting 3%. But moving forward, we can't do the 2% anymore. So we're proposing 2% and to remit 3%.
You can't do the 2% increase.
Yeah, we're proposing to collect 2% from customers and remit 3%.
Right. So they will all see an increase. I mean, that's
Of
what.
1%.
Of 1%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question, thank you. So last, just to cover those points again, specific for Newcastle, I mean, the stuff that we talked about is general franchise. For the city of Newcastle, the terms we're proposing is 25 years. So August 2024 to August 2049. We did include that 10-year opener language to provide some comfortability in the length. Hoping that that's kind of a happy medium that provides the longevity that we hope to get as a utility to for that rating, for that financial rating, but then offer the city every 10-year increment the opportunity, should you want to take it, to open up that franchise and talk about things that you may not be happy with. We hope that we don't have to do that in 10 years because we're here all the time,
But it is an out kind of for us then at that time.
it is, yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then, yeah, the body, the real meat of the franchise, which is the opportunity to maintain, construct and maintain the utility within the city of Newcastle. And then that remit 3% and collect 2% from customers.
So
Oh,
the last franchise agreement is expiring.
yes,
So, and it took place over a span of 25 years,
20 years, I think.
20 years.
Yeah,
So I mean, just trying to be a little bit, prudent about how things are happening in our town, right? It seems that there's been a few things that have come up recently where we're looking at really long term, right? We had a presentation we went to the other night, public hearing, where we were looking at something that could take place over the span of 50 years, and it's falling on my term, right? So it's a
big decisions to make.
it's a big responsibility to look at something that's going to take place over a couple of decades.
Mhm.
So, or a decade, but I mean, that was my thing when you guys came one of the first times was, you guys pretty much have all of the power, like you guys own the utility in our town.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's not even very realistic for some other company to come in and say, oh, well, we want the franchise now,
But really what that offers too, though, is, I mean, one of the times we were here, we talked about how good the service we provide.
Yeah.
How we have great reliability. The thing about that is, in 10 years from now, if we're not producing, if a good product, we'll call it, that gives you guys an opportunity to hold our feet to the fire, so to speak. And, those are the type of things that having a 10-year open would give you the opportunity to do. Because obviously, if we're not doing our jobs correctly, we shouldn't be the ones that we're fighting. So,
No, understood.
I just wasn't sure that's what you meant.
No, I'm a customer too, and I mean, I don't recall my power being out longer than a few seconds, in
Yeah,
recent history, so.
No, but I just wasn't sure that's what you were asking.
Yeah, well, I was just saying that, I mean, you guys currently own the utilities.
Yes.
So I mean, it would just be a really lengthy and involved process for some other company to try to come in here. So, I mean, and you guys do provide reliable service, you provide a good product.
Thank you.
But, so I'm just saying, you guys have a foothold here, and that's
Yes.
good, right? So, yes, I understand.
Okay.
Wait,
We,
it
you know,
is,
we don't take it for granted though. I mean,
Yeah.
That's the thing, that's what the point I'm trying to make is that we don't take it for granted. It's important for us that whether Gray calls us up and says that there's a street light out, or even something as simple as that, it's important for us that we provide good customer service and we have those type of things.
changing the franchise would be difficult. It would be, but, our motto at Black Hills Energy is to be the provider of choice. And we work hard to be a community partner and to provide a really good service, so you don't feel held hostage, because that's not our intent at all.
Understood.
Any other questions?
No,
No.
no, I think you covered it very thoroughly this time. My big question the last time was, the franchise fee and how it's
Yeah.
collected. But it was, I don't know why it wasn't clear to me at the last meeting, but you came back and now it's clear.
Okay,
Good.
well,
Well,
that's
it's
our
just a
goal.
big deal for us to make these decisions for the whole town, you know
Yeah.
what we're
Of
saying.
course.
So
Yeah.
that's, and we're gonna be stuck with this now for 25 years. And I don't mean that, but you know what I'm saying, we're making something for 25 years for the citizens of this town. So we get it, I get where he's
Yeah.
coming from, but
Yeah, this is a big
You
deal,
know,
and
yeah.
we don't want to,
Yeah.
it's a big deal, and asking all of the questions is exactly what you should do, so I appreciate that.
so, I don't have any more questions.
All right,
Thank you.
well, we'll stick around and, I'll walk through the ordinances, during the meeting and go from there.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
In addition to the weekly printed version of the newsletter journal, we also promote our community and share important information on our award-winning website, newslj.com, and in our weekly email newsletter, Nuke Now. We also connect with readers through various social media platforms and invite you to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can even take a look at a recent meeting of the City Council, School Board, or County Commission on our YouTube channel. We do hope that you will go to newslj.com and subscribe today, and we look forward to making all of our great content available to you. But regardless of your level of support, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for doing your part to preserve a free and independent local press.